The man drank the water, and the little loli opposite also drank the water. She raised the cup in her hand, and the little loli obediently walked up to her. She was not polite, and drank a big cup in one breath. Pawan was curious about how such a small belly was filled with so many. At this time, she would never have thought that the girl was actually a Pakistani who was incompatible with India. She kindly ordered a big pancake for the little girl, but she didn't expect that she raised her 2 fingers firmly. The meaning was obviously that she wanted to eliminate 2. It seemed that she had been hungry for a long time. Pawan curiously wanted to ask for some useful information, but no matter how she asked, the girl just stuck out her tongue mischievously. The girl may be a breeder living nearby. Pawan kindly paid for her and planned to leave. However, she didn't expect the girl to follow her directly. She thought the girl wanted to beg for some money, but when she handed over the money, the girl just looked at her with her big eyes. Her dirty look. Pawan realized at this time that the girl might have been separated from her parents for a long time. Some people just waited with shameless animals. After giving birth to the child, they didn't want to treat her with care. She really wanted to help the girl, but unfortunately she was also in a state of being under someone else's roof. She had no choice but to hope that the monkey god she believed in could protect her. In the end, her heart was so simple and kind that she couldn't make her feel cruel. Maybe the road ahead is difficult, but love in my heart will definitely overcome all obstacles. The innocent and helpless little girl finally met her heart and ended her lonely and useless wandering. What Pawan didn't expect was that one day she finally learned that the girl was Pakistani. In order to help her return to her family, she was treated as a spy by the hostile country. On the day when the truth was revealed, both countries regarded her as a hero. Countless netizens were moved to tears. After watching it, Amirhan even walked out of the cinema crying and said that this was a movie that should never be released. The girl's name is Shah Saida. She was born in a rural mountainous area in Pakistan. The family lived a carefree shepherd life, but Shah Saida grew up until she was 6 years old and could not speak. Many methods have been tried but failed. The family can only rely on the gods. The mother plans to take her to the largest mosque in India to pray, hoping that the gods can bless her daughter to speak. Unexpectedly, when she returned to the city, the train suddenly malfunctioned and stopped. Shah Saida was attracted by a little lamb on the side of the road and got out of the car. But the sleeping mother did not notice all this. When the train started again, it was too late for Shah Saida to get on the car. The mother was obviously close to her, but she would not make any sound. In this way, the train went further and further, and she only noticed the thin figure. When the mother woke up, she found that it was too late when her daughter disappeared. She shouted anxiously at her daughter. The name was not responded. In the end, she pulled down the emergency brake car desperately, but in the end she was still a step slower. The train just entered Pakistan. As long as the door was closed, the land would become 2 countries. The mother asked the superior that her daughter had disappeared 5 minutes ago, hoping to open the door and let her go back to find her daughter. The commander was soothing in an official manner, because she had no choice. The woman kept crying. The iron gate seemed to be very close to her daughter, but it was far away that it was impossible to make an appointment. On the other side, in order to catch up with her mother, Shah Saida climbed onto a freight train, but she didn't expect the train to take her to New Delhi, the capital of India, directly. Unfamiliar with the place, she was soon attracted by Pawan's harmless, silly appearance. Children are so magical. Their intuition can often quickly identify kind-hearted people. Pawan's only disadvantage is that she is not very smart since she is young, and even the punishment formula is arrested and replaced. Every time she gets 28 and 29 gets 7. No matter how much her father is punished, it is useless. Since her brain is not good, she can change her physical strength. But in the wrestling arena, she can always be touched by the opponent's limbs and raises her hair straight. My father wanted to cultivate her political foundation, but she was unaware of it. She didn't get into high school until she was 20 years old. After taking the graduation exam more than 10 times, she still failed. Every time, she couldn't help but beat her father. My father really couldn't figure it out, and her son's talent panel was closed in every aspect. During the 11th exam, his father had no hope for her. He believed that every time his son failed, he was a naked humiliation of her. At this time, he had a feeling of seeing through the world. The father asked his son to get out of work in Delhi. He had already told his friends there to get him a job, but he didn't expect that his son would bring good news this time. My father was indeed shocked, and was directly shocked to the west. In order to complete his father's last hospital, he obediently went to Delhi to join his father's prison garden. In the car, Ulao accidentally signed him for the line. Since there was no extra change, he let him share the fee with another girl. This simple question almost used his CPU. He pulled it back and forth, and the girl thought he was exploring his nature and left angrily. He thought he was a stalker, and a large group of strong men immediately held him back. In a hurry, Pawan quickly revealed his father's name, which turned out to be the son of an old friend. The uncle invited him into the house and had a good treat, but this guy had an amazing appetite. He almost lost 10 pence in one meal. The aunt did not dislike him because his cooking skills were finally respected. Pawan finally settled down at the uncle's house, and every time he saw a monkey, Jessica had never seen such a devout believer, and he finally realized that Pawan was not a frivolous person. Jessica kindly brought mosquito coils to Pawan, because not only did Delhi have many monkeys, but also quite a lot of mosquitoes, but he was stopped by Pawan before leaving. His sincere personality aroused Jessica's interest. As they were together day and night, their relationship heated up unconsciously, but the uncle didn't know all this at this time. That day, he arranged a blind date for his daughter with a good value. He told Jessica about the marriage proposal from someone, but Jessica just asked him lightly. Although Pawan was a little dull and clumsy, he was lucky to have an opinionated girlfriend. Jessica bravely held Pawan's hand and expressed her feelings to everyone. Luckily, Pawan met a pretty enlightened future father-in-law. The uncle thought solemnly for a while and finally apologized to the others. The visitor felt insulted, so he naturally couldn't help but curse. But this did not mean that the uncle had agreed to his daughter's marriage, and he put forward his own conditions. The uncle said that Pawan must buy the house with his own efforts within 6 months, otherwise he will be betrothed his daughter to a more suitable man. The uncle said that Pawan must buy the house with his own efforts within 6 months, otherwise he will be betrothed his daughter to a more suitable man. After listening to his story, the people in the car cheered for Pawan, but what worries him was that he had not bought the house yet, but he brought back a little mother. He also thought about sending him to the police station for help, but since Shahzaida couldn't speak and could not provide useful information, Pawan had no choice but to take the little guy home. Sure enough, the uncle accused Pawan of being unwilling to face it. His severity was just to allow Pawan to take good care of his daughter as soon as possible. But Shahzaida mistakenly thought that her grandfather didn't like him. In addition, she remembered her mother in the distance, and hid alone in the corner and cried secretly, and even more trouble was still behind. Due to different diets, the bland vegetarian diet made Shahzaida have no appetite. The smell of meat from the neighbor next door made his index finger move. In just a blink of an eye, the little guy disappeared, which made everyone remember. Finally, he searched and found that he was hiding in his neighbor's house and eating chicken legs, which surprised Pawan. This proves that Shahzada's caste is not a Brahmin, because most of the Brahmins follow vegetarianism and he wants to stop it, but the facts cannot be changed. Pawan is unwilling to admit that Shahzaida is a Muslim, so he has to comfort himself. But the facts soon slapped the face again. When they were shopping that day, the roadside vendors kept shouting, The little guy thought it was free, so he picked up one. Pawan quickly taught him not to steal things, and in order to atone for his sins, he brought him to the monkey god to repent sincerely. But in the blink of an eye, Shah Saida disappeared and he ran to the mosque opposite. When Pawan found him, he found that he was meditating skillfully, then wrapped his head in a veil, and then prayed devoutly. This scene shattered Pawan's last fantasy. Shah Saida was a real little Muslim. Thinking of the conflict and estrangement between the two religions, he couldn't stand it. I waited to guide people to the religion of beautiful villages, but I don't know when it started. Secretly buried the seeds of hatred in people's hearts. Pawan walked out of the mosque in a daze, and he didn't know how to deal with this. Then what is that? What is that? Then 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 what is that? They stepped into the mosque again, but Shah Saida was gone. The feeling of panic in the nose drum climbed up to my heart. Pawan had already regarded Shah Saida as his daughter without realizing it. It was not until the worry of losing it was overwhelming that I realized that I was so afraid of losing her. But with a family embrace, these feelings disappeared. The obstacles that arise from prejudice and narrowness are no longer important. All that is left is two beating hearts connected together. When he got home, Pawan was worried about how to explain to his future father-in-law. But a baseball game between India and Pakistan shocked everyone. When the Indian team scored, everyone cheered. Only Shah Saida was pissing her hands angry. But when Pakistan scored, she clapped excitedly, making the old man very angry. With Pakistan scoring one after another, he finally won the championship. Shah Saida was also happy and climbed up to the table to dance. Then he exclaimed to Pakistan on TV and gave himself a deep kiss. Pawan felt a little cold when he saw this scene. She had previously reported all the place names in India just to confirm where Shah Saida came from. But she shook her head and denied it, and the answer was about to come out at this moment. Her Muslim identity is already a big deal, let alone a Muslim from a hostile country. As expected, the old man directly bombed them out. The ant who has experienced those things is deeply rooted in hatred. I'm at home now and I can't stand it anymore. The father-in-law of the future is now receiving Pawan, and Shah Saida must be sent to the Pakistani consulate tomorrow. But unexpectedly, the situation in Pakistan and India suddenly became tense. A large number of protesters gathered outside the consulate, and Pawan explained the situation to the staff in a worried manner. But because he doesn't have a passport, Shah Saida can't speak and explain. Without saying a word, he refused to provide help, so Pawan had no choice but to go home. But when they walked out of the door, a large number of demonstrators lost control. In order to prevent Shah Saida from being hurt, Pawan took down all the sticks. Due to this vicious incident, Pakistan temporarily suspended all Indian visas, and the old man did not give in at all. Shah Saida must send it away as soon as possible, and he used his connections to find a travel agency. But when the staff heard that they wanted to apply for a Pakistan visa, they were different from their lives to show their deep hatred. Visa from all countries around the world can be applied, but Pakistan is not available. Pawan had never imagined that this was a travel agency routine, so he was disappointed to leave. The staff immediately called him mysteriously, saying that they could use their connections to send Shah Saida back to Pakistan, but the cost was as high as 150,000 rubles. This made Pawan see a glimmer of hope and fall into a new dilemma. He opened that all his savings were still far from enough. Just when he was worried, Jessica took out a thick envelope with their savings to buy a wedding house. Pawan said that if you don't buy a house, your dad will definitely not let you marry, but Jessica said, looking at the scene in front of her, Shah Saida knew what would happen next, and she kept shaking her head to protest. Pawan took out his contact information and told the staff that when sending Shahzaida back to her family, he must report her safety as soon as possible. But Shahzaida was unwilling to be separated from Uncle Silly, and kept shaking her head, her eyes full of begging. No matter how soft Pawan comforted her, in order not to make her sad. Pawan said fierce words on purpose, rather make her angry with herself than her little heart is too sad. But Shahzaida knew that Uncle Pawan's fierce words were all fake. She shook her head even more intensely, and did not want to let go of her little hand. Pawan turned around and left without looking back, fearing that he would be unable to make up his mind if he stayed for a second longer. Shahzaida kept slapping the glass. What could a 6-year-old change? She couldn't even say what she felt in her heart. Pawan was already in tears while walking on the road. Suddenly, she saw Xiao Tan, who was familiar on the roadside, and the memories of the past surged into her heart. It seemed less sad at this moment, and instead, the earnest mood of giving this little gift to Shahzaida. But the travel agency has turned off the lights and closed the door, and Pawan has been following the tricycle that has just left. When asked passers-by, they learned that the travel agency had brought Shahzaida into the building. When she came upstairs, the smoky scene inside made her feel uneasy. She quickly searched each room, but unexpectedly saw a scene that made her feel broken. The travel agency's human-faced and animal-hearted man was counting money. Not only did she cheat him of the house purchase money, but she also sold the little girl to Qing Mao. Shahzaida was getting out of control and returning to her side. Pawan was furious, and would definitely deal with a thug every time he made an action. If you want to talk, you can do it in the next life. After this incident, Pawan believed that no one was worthy of trust. She said firmly that she wanted to send Shahzaida back to her family, and could always support her Jessica. This time, she strongly opposed her. Not only did she not have a passport, but she also went to an unfamiliar hostile country. But Pawan chose to give her destiny to faith, hoping that faith could guide her. The difficulties in front of you are just a temporary test. If you are unwilling to face the test, how can you prove your faith? They passed through the hot and vast desert area and arrived at the India-Pakistan border. As soon as they got off the car, the local snake instantly stared at her. Pawan doesn't want to go back once. The local tyrant said that she had a way to cross the border. She wanted to take Pawan and meet her hard, but when she learned that the purpose of Pawan's trip was to send a little girl she didn't know home, the local tyrant admired her courage and virgin, and decided not to take a penny. But she didn't know that she would be stolen by the silly kid. The border patrol passes every 10 minutes, and they must take advantage of the gap to enter Pakistan through the tunnel. The local snake covered the passageway and was ready to leave. But Pawan said that she was a believer of the monkey god and would never do anything sneaky. She had to obtain permission from the army before entering. The local snake was speechless, and was so anxious that it knelt down and begged for the butterfly. Seeing that the army was getting closer, the local snake had no choice but to leave first. Pawan was soon discovered by the border guards, and the question was instantly surrounded by Heiyu Gun. She was treated as a spy from the neighboring country by the patrol team. Pawan, who would not lie, explained that because the consulate stopped applying for a visa, and by chance, he was taken into the country by a kind local snake. In this way, with her truthful explanation, the border guard not only discovered the mysterious passage, but also exposed the name of the local snake. The local snake who was eavesdropping in the distance was running for a while, and the commander disliked her too stupid and was too lazy to catch her. While sending her back the same way, he blocked the passage. But 10 minutes later, the patrol team found Pawan waiting there again, and she didn't hide it. This time she came in from another tunnel, but the next thing that greeted her was the patrol team beat her up. But she couldn't help but feel hurt in her eyes. In order not to worry, Pawan Kiang pretended to be fine to comfort her. And she proved that she just wanted an open and honest allowance, in order not to let Shahzaida and her suffer from hiding and suffering, and also for the faith in her heart. In the end, the commander couldn't help but feel soft when he saw Shahzada's pitiful appearance. The chief's hint is already quite obvious. With her authority, there is only so much that can be done. But when they saw Poen for the third time, everyone thought she was stupid and crazy, but Poen only had a simple idea in her heart. She didn't want to enter someone else's home like a thief. She had to get the consent of the owner before she could feel at ease. She said she just wanted to send a lost little girl back to her mother, and then return from here as usual. The commander was silent. But in the end, he was fired. I personally agreed that Poen could go in. Finally, she knew what she had and had not yet opened her mind. She won trust and respect. But this was just the first level. Her different eating habits and local tests quickly attracted the attention of the local sheriff. When she learned that she was an Indian who came in through the border tunnel, the sheriff immediately labeled her as an Indian spy. After all, she only received the verbal permission of the border guard commander, and there was no other proof. A reporter who followed the current affairs seized the opportunity and wanted to come back. The sheriff also wants to get promoted and make a fortune through this case. At this moment, Shahzaida suddenly discovered that the pictures on the calendar looked very similar to her hometown. Poen was happy to think that it could finally be explained clearly that as long as the police station helped find Shahzada's home, everything would be abandoned without any struggle. But the sheriff not only did not have the patience to investigate and verify, but instead brutally doubted the authenticity of Shahzada's ability to speak. Poen himself could endure humiliation or assault, but he could not bear any harm to Shahzaida. In a rage, one person fucked all the wine bags, and every place was the same, and there were always good people and bad people. Poen was about to slip away quietly, but unexpectedly he was photographed by a reporter who was recording. The temptation of the headlines prompted him to keep up with this dangerous enemy spy. He quietly reported Poen's implementation location to the police station, and Poen was asked where he was going. But he just raised the photo in his hand and said that he was not a local. I repeated the whole story again, just to help Shahzaida find her way home as soon as possible. Along the way, I have suffered too many hardships, and even a 6-year-old child knows that he can't tell the truth anymore. But Poen still chose not to hide it, just because she was not a spy or a thief. She just wanted to help a little girl find her home. The reporter was surprised by her honesty. A spy could not take the initiative to explain information that was not good for him. Putting aside religious and political stances, people are more willing to believe in simple and beautiful things. The conductor simply hoped that there would be more people like Poen between the two countries. He also took the initiative to circulate the photos to passengers in the car, hoping that someone would recognize the place. When it was reached to the reporter, Poen recognized him at a glance. Little did he know that his location had been revealed to the police by reporters, but the bus was stopped shortly after. But when the police got into the car, everyone in the car said they had never seen Poen. Everyone stared at each other, and it turned out that the reporter told the truth. So they were hid by the driver one step ahead of time on the roof of the car, and they drove for a day. At night, the driver also enthusiastically helped them arrange their sleeping place. But I didn't know that when I woke up the next day, this place scared Poen. A believer of the monkey god actually ran to another sect to sleep, which was really disrespectful to the monkey god. The mosque host was curious why he stood at the door but didn't go in. Poen was impressed by the host's demeanor, and he also helped Poen ask the students about the address in the photo, which was located in the mountainous area of Kashmir. But at the same time, the police also inferred from Shahzada's performance that day that the approximate direction of Poen and his team were going to this trip. Just as the police were about to go in for search, the host used his respected identity to easily resolve the situation, and then made the two big men dress up as women. The host personally sent it out of the city, which was the first time Poen received help from Muslims. Thanks, Poen also said. He subconsciously made Muslim gestures, and although he immediately reacted, his inner prejudice had changed. The host noticed his attitude. Not only did he not care about it, but instead responded with the slogan of the monkey god. His attitude of not sticking to formality made Powen self-injured. On the next journey, they avoided the main road and walked the small road. The beautiful scenery along the way finally made people no longer so nervous and tired. The reporter kept recording every warm moment. The three of them stepped across the snow-capped mountains and the primeval forests, and they could see the greenness of Kashmir. As time passed day by day, they climbed one mountain after another, but they still couldn't find Shahzada's hometown. Powen began to feel a little discouraged. He felt that it would be better to surrender to the police station again, so that the police could help find Shahzada's home. But the reporter did not agree with his idea. If he surrendered, he would definitely be robbed as a spy, and Shahzada might be sent to an orphanage. Perhaps only he will do his best to help Shahzada in this world, and the reporter finally plans to take a risk, although it may be exposed to the unknown. But he still decided to contact various TV stations, hoping to report Shahzada's affairs to the whole country. But the TV station only cares about the ratings, and they think that Powen as a spy has more selling points. When the road is full of confusion, I can only hope that the gods can give guidance. The reporter knew that there was a large temple nearby, but he considered Powen's feelings. Looking at the sleeping Shahzada, Powen only felt that as long as he could send him home, nothing else was important. The next day, Powen mixed into the believers of other religions and listened to their prayers, while praying devoutly in his heart, as if the gods had heard his heart. Shahzada's mother was making a wish outside the door. She has come here to pray every day since her daughter disappeared, but fate joked about them again. Powen accidentally covered Shahzada's face reddened by the sun, and even more unfortunately, the police also followed him here. The three hurriedly hid, and after the police left, the reporter had to rely on the internet. He posted the video he just recorded online for help, which explained the whole story of Powen's entire story. When I was checking the video again at night, Shahzada suddenly became excited. The camera accidentally recorded her mother who came to pray during the day. Jane was overjoyed and turned the video back to find that Shahzada's mother got off a bus. The next morning they waited for the bus again and asked the driver what stations he had passed. They hugged each other excitedly. After all, they had to go through a lot of hardships, and finally they were only one last step away. The three immediately set off for their destination, but at the same time, the police also learned about their location through videos on the internet. The three of them immediately set up checkpoints on all nearby routes. They encountered the police blocking the road for inspection halfway. Powen told reporters that he must send Shahzada home safely, and he himself tried to attract the attention of the police. He used his flexible positioning in the woods to delay time, and the reporter could finally go home slowly. At home, just when my mother missed her daughter and was about to have sex, she suddenly saw a familiar figure running towards him from the hillside. My mother couldn't believe it was true. She thought it was her own illusion because she had imagined this scene countless times. In the middle, the concern and worry were full of joy and rushing. At this moment, Shahzada's tears of happiness and grievance could no longer be allowed to vent her. The reporter took a picture of this shaken scene. Only at this moment did he realize the significance of Powen's persistence in completing this matter. But the situation on Powen's side is not very optimistic at this moment. Although he was agile, he was unable to take risks due to the large number of people on the other side. But when he accidentally slipped under his feet, he rolled down from the steep slope. Seeing that the police could not catch up with him, they shot directly. The reporter felt uneasy. Powen eventually fell down with injuries and was kept in prison and beaten. Pakistani senior officials issued a death order. No matter what means you use, you must find out the identity of the spy. But no matter what kind of inhuman torture he suffered, Powen was still unwilling to admit it. In order to save his friends, the reporter kept speaking out on the internet. The director sent someone to the Indian police station to learn about the situation. India said that Pawan did call the police with a girl who couldn't speak. When the news came back, the director quickly stopped the interrogation and then reported the situation to the senior management. Unexpectedly, after hearing the truth, the senior management issued a decisive order. If the director doesn't do what he said, then he will roll the bed and get out of here. The director was in a dilemma, outside the prison. The reporter spoke again and again on the internet. But his voice seemed so lonely and powerless. His friend was arrested by the police for this and asked about the whereabouts of the reporter. But this did not make the reporter surrender, but instead made an even more angry cry. The calls from reporters are being seen by more and more people. This incident has also been passed back to India. TV stations on both sides saw the hot spots and finally followed up on the reports. After a war between heaven and man, the director still couldn't get over his conscience. He risked losing his job and released Pawan. But when the news reached the senior management, he issued a dead order to block the border despite the surging name. He wants Pawan to leave in time. Since he left the police station, he couldn't get out of this country. The next day, the border guards were ready for battle. But when they looked into the distance, they suddenly saw a dense crowd. The people on both sides spontaneously went to the border station. On one hand, there is an eagerness to welcome the son who returns home, and on the other hand, there is a team of escorting the heroes. They are densely packed, like sparks in the sky, and at the same time they are united. Like an unstoppable torrent of courage, they all came for one person. The reporter excitedly told Pawan that he had sent Shah Saida home safely. Although Pawan was in pain, this news was the best placebo. Everyone suddenly felt emotional and shouted his name unconsciously. The sound is everywhere, and it lasts forever. But what they will face next is the last line of defense. The border guards received orders to stop Pawan. If the director violates the order, he will be arrested directly. The director said that if this person had risked his life just to escort your kids home, will you open the door? The officer's classical Chinese just said coldly, I was just on orders to act. At this time, people's voices rose and rose. Everyone was excited. Are these sounds heard? This is the voice of Pakistan. If they can see the difference between right and wrong. So why not? Because you are a soldier. You will better understand the difference between right and wrong. The officer still said coldly that we soldiers can only obey orders. But we are so small, and you are so large. We definitely can't stop it. After saying that, they changed their positions and stood firm. People can no longer comfort themselves at this time. A nest of wind rushed towards the sky gate, and the long depressed mood could not be stopped. At this time, everyone had only one thought. Heroes cannot find the door to go home. When Pawan looked back, he was filled with cheers and applause. He looked at the living people. Let go of the narrow-mindedness and prejudice in your heart completely. He made a Muslim gesture solemnly, used to express inner gratitude and respect. Shah Saida finally squeezed out the airtight crowd. He kept waving goodbye to Uncle Silly. He wanted to say it, but he couldn't speak out. The uncle thought that the opposite was long-time classmate. But seeing Pawan return safely, a hint of pride surged in his heart. Just as Pawan was about to cross the boundary line, an uncontrollable warmth surged in Shahzada's heart. At this moment, the whole world seemed to be in silence. Only a feeling that was getting stronger and stronger came to my heart. Shahzada couldn't believe it. He tried to shout again. This time he shouted more firmly. Although it was the first time I heard it. But Pawan suddenly recognized that it was Shahzada's voice. Maybe it moved God. Or maybe it is the deep and passionate love that can break through all obstacles. His voice penetrated everyone's shouts. The two ran towards each other desperately. Finally, amid Shahzada's affectionate cry, the video ends.